In today's video, I'm going to be picking every single Week 5 game of the college football season. It is my favorite weekly activity to do, and we are going to do it using this beautiful website, Playoff Predictors. We have got a insane college football slate to pick here, and I'm just so stoked that we should just get into it. As usual, I will add the disclaimer that I'm not going to be able to go as crazily in depth with every single matchup as I might want to. I'll try to go a little bit more in depth with some of the bigger matchups, which we've got quite a few this week, so we got to get started. We start with Thursday, going to help us bridge the gap to Friday, which will bridge the gap to Saturday. Army at East Carolina, pleasant American Conference matchup. Both teams have been stuck with a couple of losses. Army's season has not gone as expected. It hasn't been a complete disaster. They beat Kansas State, but they did lose to Tarleton State, an FCS team. They just lost to North Texas, went down big early in that one, and then end up losing in overtime. So it's been a shaky Army team, not quite as effective and efficient on offense as they were last season. The defense has clearly lost a few steps this year. And for East Carolina, it's also been a bit of a mixed bag. They haven't been as competitive as I think they hoped they would be against BYU last week. They did lose a close one at NC State. For the most part, has not been a disastrous start to the season, but both teams really need this, especially with how strong that top tier of the conference is playing, and each of these teams has several games against that top tier of the conference. So I think East Carolina, as the home team, feels like they need it just a little bit more with how desperate Blake Harrell might be to get off to a nice start his first year as the full head coach at East Carolina. I'm going to rock with the Pirates there. Trio of excellent Friday games. Well, maybe two excellent ones and one mediocre one. I'm looking at you, Houston, Oregon State. But Florida State heads on the road to play Virginia, kind of setting the tone for what I would call trap game Saturday. A lot of trap games on the schedule here that we will get into. Florida State going to be favored in this game. They were the Hunters earlier in the year. Now they're the Hunted, a top 10 team. Virginia would love nothing more than beat them. It would make their whole year if they pulled this one off. The offense for Virginia has been very effective thus far, but they haven't really played a real defense. Florida State's going to be that real defense. I'd be a little nervous about what Virginia does possess, but I also don't see how Virginia stops Florida State in this game. Genuinely how, especially with how effective and efficient they've looked, even against inferior competition. It's been a very smooth operation, so that Malzahn offense should manufacture some big plays and beat Virginia soundly. TCU heads on the road to play Arizona State. This is a game I will be at. I do not know what I did in a past life to earn the right to go to a game like this on a Friday and then get to rot in my couch all day Saturday watching all those games. It's pretty spectacular. I'm pretty pumped for this one. Sun Devils, a slight favorite despite TCU being ranked, them being unranked, and I think that's a vote of confidence in what the Sun Devils have been able to do on their own home field. They performed very well against Baylor last week. It was, again, the play calling, the game planning. It's always so impressive with the Sun Devils. It feels like ever since things got humming last year, they've just been so good at dictating what kind of game they want to play, and it worked against Baylor's effective passing game. I think it'll work against TCU's effective passing game. Eric McAllister is a demon, though. You cannot let him get out and run. We saw that against SMU for TCU last week. I do think the Sun Devils get the win, defend the home field, but TCU obviously capable of doing some serious damage. Sun Devils cannot let them get out of hand early, especially with some of the struggles Levitt's had in the early season. I think that he takes another step forward. He's gotten improvement each week this year, I think. Houston heads on the road to play Oregon State. Houston about a 2-touchdown favorite. The Beavs 0-4 on the season. They're desperate. They're at home, but the home field advantage doesn't quite mean what it used to. You get the sense that the fan base is starting to turn on Trent Bray a little bit, and it sounds like the locker room might be as well. Really sad state of affairs. They're going to drop to 0-5. They could still make a bowl game looking at their schedule on paper, but it's not going to be easy because you have to wonder what it does to a locker room to start 0-5. UCF travels on the road to play Kansas State. I've been pleasantly surprised by UCF. Scott Frost riding a very long regular season winning streak with UCF right now, which is kind of a funny, quirky thing. But Kansas State has looked terrible as well. Not a team I have a great deal of trust in, but I don't think UCF is all that legit. So I'm going to trust Kansas State at home to finally right the ship. It's not like Kleiman's just cooked and the locker room's checked out. He's still a good head coach. I still think the locker room is bought in. I just think that they've had some things go seriously wrong. So a team I think is capable of turning things around, especially when you consider the fact that they only have the conference loss. Well, they have two actually now to Iowa State and Arizona. So that would have been a moot point. I think moot is the correct word. Sometimes I say mute and I get made fun of in the comments, but it's okay. I don't care. Cincinnati heads on the road to play Kansas, an intriguing game. First time we've seen the Bearcats really in action against a good opponent since that Nebraska game. They showed some great things running the football. Sorsby was effective with his legs. And then defensively, they also showed some positive signs. But Kansas has been a different beast offensively, moving the ball this year. Very effective for them. They almost look like the the Andy Kotelnicki days of the Kansas offense. Or even if you go back to last year, how they looked in November, I think they win that one. Bowling Green got an impressive win earlier this year against Liberty. Doesn't look as impressive anymore. Wasn't too great of an effort versus Louisville. I'd call it a spirited effort. But Ohio has just been so effective, especially moving the football. They don't play much defense, but how are you going to stop Parker Navarro? How are you going to stop anyone on this Ohio offense? So I like Ohio here, and I'll take them as the home team. We got a pair of ACC games that are pretty fun here. Louisville at Pitt. I think people are way too low on Pitt right now after the loss to West Virginia. It's an overtime loss in a rivalry game. So I actually like Pitt at home to get a win over a Louisville team that has kind of sputtered a little bit, has not been overly impressive to me. I think they're going to get exposed for some things specifically on offense that have been a little clunky thus far, even though obviously both teams here have players that can really hurt you. Duke on the road versus Syracuse. I'm really sad that Steve Angeli is out for this one. It would have been really awesome to see him in action. I think it would have been a lot better game. Duke has shown an ability to consistently move the ball up and down the field. When they don't turn the ball over, what do you know? They win. So they got to take care of the football. I think they will take care of business at Syracuse. Obviously, a very good Syracuse team with a lot of fight. We saw that last week. Notre Dame travels to play Arkansas. All the pressures on the Fighting Irish. This is part of those trap games we were talking about. Notre Dame, already 2 losses, backs against the wall. Arkansas, nothing to lose. They have 2 losses too, but whatever. Their coach is as good as fired, according to everyone else, and they're at home. They'd love nothing more than to pull this one off. It would almost cancel out the Memphis loss, you feel like. I still think Notre Dame's just going to find a way to grit this one out, but I think they're only like a 3.5-point favorite. It is a super sketchy spot for the Fighting Irish. I think they figured out, especially because nothing nice happens to Arkansas ever. They just can't have nice things. They're cursed, it feels like, especially after that Memphis game. USC at Illinois is a big-time Big Ten battle. Illinois obviously getting absolutely boat raced by Indiana, but a big opportunity for a bounce-back win. I do think their offense will get back on track versus a USC defense that's maybe not as far along as some people might hope they be this year, but I actually think USC is able to get the job done on the road. Their offense has been pretty spectacular. Talked about how the defense has been a little disappointing thus far, but I think they go on the road and get another nice win over an Illinois team that I tried to warn everyone all offseason was overrated and nobody wanted to listen. Rutgers heads on the road to play Minnesota. Game I've gone back and forth on. Minnesota, last time we saw them, lost to a Cal team. That Cal team just got literally shut out 34-0 to San Diego State last week. So not an overly impressive thing to do, obviously. Coming off the bye, though, is nice, but Rutgers also coming off of a long week of prep. They played last Friday, lost to Iowa. The offense has shown a ton of great stuff, and when it comes between these two teams, the team that has absolutely shown me more offensively is Rutgers, and even with my offseason analysis, I liked Rutgers a little bit more than I liked Minnesota. So I'm going to rock with Rutgers to get a road victory in the Big Ten and kind of steal back one of those games after they lose a close one to Iowa. South Alabama heads on the road to play North Texas. North Texas has looked every bit as good as I thought they could, and even better. I think they beat a South Alabama team that's been hot and cold this year, taking some tough losses. That loss to Coastal Carolina last week, not a great-looking one, but they could still compete in this game and very well could beat North Texas. North Texas is not immune to losses. Let's not forget this team almost lost to Western Michigan earlier this year. Georgia Tech heads on the road to play Wake Forest. Wake Forest, a team that has not been very impressive. I don't think they're a very good team, but it is a trap game, part of trap game Saturday like we talked about. I think the Yellow Jackets go on the road and take care of business. I think their play style travels well, and it just doesn't seem like it's in the nature of a Brent Key coach team to sort of just meander into a game and get caught by surprise. I think they'll be very much ready for this one. Utah State at Vanderbilt's an interesting matchup. Utah State, an intriguing team under Bronco Mendenhall. They've landed a few nice victories, including a pretty lopsided win over Air Force. But Vandy has done a nice job taking care of the inferior competition this year. It's Utah State's second game versus an SEC opponent. They dropped a little bit of points on Texas A&M when they played them. So wouldn't be surprised if they do the same here versus Vandy. But I think Vandy gets the job done. They're coming off of, I believe, dropping 70 on Georgia State. So if they win, it gets them into their first 5-0 start since who even knows when. I cannot remember the last time Vandy had a start like that. Eastern Michigan at Central Michigan has a little bit more intrigue than it did a week ago because Eastern Michigan took out Louisiana. A nice win. Chris Creighton's team's first win. They had literally lost to Long Island earlier in the year, so felt like things could get ugly. That was a big win for them. They had on the road to play a Central Michigan team that has shown a lot of really good stuff as well. They had the win over San Jose State. So both teams landing pretty impressive non-conference victories. I like Central Michigan as the home team here, but certainly don't rule out either team. I do think bowl hopes still teetering on the brink, probably for both teams with their non-conference performances, but never say never. This one's a key swing game. Georgia Southern heads on the road to play James Madison. James Madison, that one loss to Louisville on the season. Outside of that, they've been a pretty effective team and a good team. Georgia Southern's not bad in their own right. Maybe dropped an extra game versus Fresno State that they weren't hoping to drop, but again, two really good Sun Belt teams, two solid Sun Belt contenders. I think JMU gets the home victory. They were my preseason pick to win the Sun Belt, and there's been nothing thus far to suggest they're not that team. So I think they get a solid victory there. Arkansas State heads on the road to play ULM. The Warhawks are a team that just landed a really nice victory versus UTEP. On the other side, Arkansas State just lost at Kennesaw State. Butch Jones is absolutely squarely on the hot seat. Again, coaching. This is a game where I trust Bryant Vincent to have his boys ready to go and them to get a nice, decisive victory at home. Kind of shut down that Arkansas State passing attack, control this game like they do so well. Cal heads on the road to play Boston College. Last time we saw the Eagles, they got beat by Stanford. Last time we saw Cal, they got shut out by San Diego State. Both teams in a really rough spot here. Boston College at home is a tough team to play and a tough team to beat. I think at home they can get the job done here and get the victory, get back on pace for what we all know and love Boston College for, which is being a 500 team. So I think they take out a Cal team that has shown just a lot of bad things thus far. Miami of Ohio should get their first win of the year at home against Lindenwood. At least they better. They're a really good team. Nearly took out UNLV, but ended up just letting that one slip away. San Diego State heads on the road to play NIU, a team that will be in the Pac-12 next year against a team that will be in the Mountain West next year. Pretty funny. If you told someone that like 5 years ago, they would have looked at you like you were insane. They probably wouldn't even be able to guess who's going where. I think San Diego State gets the job done on the road. Thomas Hammock's squad, obviously really, really solid at squeezing and condensing games down. We've seen that time and time again. I think they can do that, but San Diego State, I think, just showed too much good stuff last week in that win over Cal. I think they're going to continue that momentum and continue to ride that this week. UCLA heads on the road to play Northwestern. This is the toilet bowl of the Big Ten. UCLA winless. Northwestern, I believe, one win on the year. I'm trying to remember. They lost to Tulane. I can't remember them landing a second victory. If they did, I apologize to Northwestern. But I think UCLA is actually able to go on the road and get the job done. With an interim head coach, sometimes teams can rally around them really well, and I think that'll be the case with UCLA here. They're still not a bad talent roster. In fact, it's much better than Northwestern's talent roster. Rice goes on the road to play Navy. This one is a Scott Abel team and an offense that has been very entertaining to watch. Please tell me you tuned into Rice last week. If you didn't, please tune in. It's going to be an awesome matchup, too, versus Navy. I mean, the two offensive styles that are similar, but also in many ways different. It's going to be really cool. I like Navy as the home team in this one. I think Navy's going to be a problem and an absolute machine this year. Kind of feels like last year's Army, or you could even say last year's Navy in terms of how they're going to dissect opponents. They're probably going to be undefeated by the time they head to play Notre Dame. Just a reality check for you. Baylor heads on the road to play Oklahoma State. Another case of an interim head coach. We've got, I believe it's Doug Meacham, who is the offensive coordinator, leading the charge. I'm going to rock with Baylor in this one. Baylor just going to shred this team. They can throw the ball so well. They should put up a lot of points. Oklahoma State's not going to be able to answer. It's not a very good team, not a very good roster. It was more than just Mike Gundy that was making this team not very good. UConn heads on the road to play Buffalo. It has been a crazy year for UConn. They lose in overtime to Delaware. They nearly beat Syracuse, but then just fall. And then they barely beat Ball State. So it's been a really hot and cold year for them. It's hard to tell a lot about this team. They do have a superstar wide receiver in Skylar Bell. Buffalo has also been hot and cold and shown a lot of great stuff. They were up 17-0 to Troy last week, end up choking. Troy scores 21 unanswered, and they lose. So both teams in a pretty desperate spot. I love this battle of Northeast teams. It's really cool aesthetically and fun aesthetically. I think UConn gets back on the right track and gets the road victory, but a couple of underrated head coaches that have really had to just battle some adverse circumstances this year in terms of their team's variance of performance. So I think UConn gets it done. Auburn heads to Texas A&M. I feel really, really terrible about Auburn in this game. I am all A&M. Auburn in a bad spot coming off a physical, close loss at Oklahoma. They have to go on the road again now to College Station. A&M's off a bye. They're confident they beat Notre Dame before the bye. I mean, just feels like the spot could not be much worse for Auburn than it is. I like Texas A&M, and I like them by a lot. I think they're going to blow the doors off of Auburn in this game. LSU at Ole Miss, you might as well flip a coin when picking this one. It is always a game that feels like could go either way. Something that I watch out for is Trinidad Chambliss against this LSU defense. I think defense travels well, and that's great news for an LSU team that has been playing really excellent defense this year. People are trying to discredit those wins over Clemson and Florida because those two teams have really struggled, but it doesn't change the fact that those two teams are really talented and still have a lot of excellent players. And LSU performed incredibly well with their defense. So I still am a believer in the LSU defense. The offense feels like maybe got a little bit of a spark last week. It was versus an FCS opponent. I think this is going to be more like last year's game rather than 2 years ago, where it's a little bit more tightly contested. The defenses are stepping up just a little bit more, but Ole Miss's defense, I think, had enough regression from last year to this year that I think we're going to see LSU come through with the victory on the road because we saw Arkansas drop a lot of points in Ole Miss. Yes, that's a pretty excellent Arkansas offense. You could argue that's actually better than LSU's, but I think LSU showed me enough. The weapons and playmakers, I think, step up in a big way for the Tigers. They get a close win. But again, you might as well flip a coin because there's scripts that could go either way. Akron heads on the road to play Toledo, and I just don't know what to do with this Toledo team, man. They lose to Western Michigan last week, and it is a solid coach team. Lance Taylor has done some really excellent stuff with Western Michigan. He's shown he's taking them in the right direction, but man, Toledo, several years in a row, you've got the best talent roster in the MAC. Is this going to be the year you win a MAC title? And Jason Candle, it just feels like always loses these inopportune games. Akron, probably not going to be another team to beat them, but who knows? They took out Toledo last year. So I think Toledo wins, but Akron has been showing a few signs of life recently. They have not looked completely awful. Ohio State heads on the road to play Washington. This is a sketchy game for like a billion reasons. Washington is a talented, well-coached team. It is an unfamiliar place. It's a long distance to travel if you're Ohio State. Your offense has not looked super inspiring. You had a very slow half against Ohio. You obviously only produced 14 points versus Texas. Yes, that's an excellent Texas defense, but this is a game that could absolutely be a game in the fourth quarter and be a tight game where the result is in doubt for Ohio State. And that makes me nervous. I am very nervous for this Ohio State team headed there. I believe the spread is around 8.5. Just an uneasy game for the Buckeyes. An upset could totally happen. I am 100% ringing the upset alert button, or slamming that, I guess. It's not a bell. And I just love DeMond Williams so much for Washington. I feel like not enough people know his name. I could so see the upset, but I just think Ohio State finds a way to survive and get it done in Seattle, as much as it pains me because I would love to be on the Washington hype train here and call this upset. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it because we are going to be calling some upsets later here. A little bit of a light spoiler. Indiana, off of a blowout victory, now heads on the road to play an Iowa team coming off of a pretty nice win over Rutgers. The Iowa offense honestly showed a lot of good things I didn't necessarily think we were going to see, and at the very least we hadn't seen. Gronowski showing a little bit of downfield passing ability, which is huge for Iowa, but Indiana looks like a machine this year. I trust they will regress to the mean a little bit. I don't think we're seeing another 63-point performance, but you know, Kurt Cignetti in these games, you never know. Maybe that's exactly what will happen. I think Indiana gets it done. I just don't see how Iowa is going to slow down these guys, especially if they couldn't really slow down Rutgers. There's been some regression from the Iowa defense that hasn't been talked about as much. I think that's why they lose this game. Utah at West Virginia. Let me tell you, I am extremely nervous for the Utah Utes. The offense showing some of the same problems and issues that they had from last season against Texas Tech. I'm going to trust that the Texas Tech defensive front is just that good, and I think Utah bounces back and has a solid performance versus West Virginia. But, man, West Virginia's got the wind at their backs right now after that win over Pitt. They're feeling really good. Just nervous for Utah. I still think that the Utes get it done, though. They obviously have a great defense in their own right. West Virginia has more things that can go wrong for them in the game plan. Underrated rivalry game here, New Mexico State versus New Mexico. I do like what New Mexico's shown a lot more. I liked them better all offseason. I think New Mexico State better than some people give them credit for, but this is not the game where they come through. New Mexico has just shown so much great stuff. With New Mexico and North Texas, two teams that I really liked in the offseason, and both look even better than I thought they'd look, and I was supremely high on them. So, love New Mexico in that game. Tulane travels on the road to play Tulsa. Maybe Tulsa has some juice. They're coming off a nice win against Oklahoma State. Tulane's still very talented. They're not going to sleepwalk into this one. They just got waxed against Ole Miss. So they're going to be ready to go out and make a statement, get a nice win over Tulsa. Hawaii has to travel on the road to play Air Force. Don't love this spot for the Rainbow Warriors at all. Alejado looked like he was seeing ghosts at many moments against Fresno State. Air Force obviously has an offense that can do some serious damage, shrink the game. Just too much inconsistency from Hawaii early in the season. I think Air Force dings them with another loss. The Bows got a critical stretch coming up here in the season where they have a lot of coin flip games. Tennessee heads on the road to play Mississippi State. Obviously, the Volunteers have answered a ton of questions on the offensive side of the football. Thus far, Joey Aguilar looks like he is the truth. He is their guy. Chris Brazzell has made some absolutely fantastic plays for them out at wide receiver, and they've been effective running the football too. Everything has been answered, it feels like. But the defense has shown a little bit of iffiness at times. Again, that was against Georgia. They did allow quite a few points versus Syracuse as well. Still, very solid opponents. I think Mississippi State is a solid opponent, and I think not enough people are giving them credit for what this home field advantage looks like when Mississippi State is full tilt. It's going to be full tilt for this game. It's going to be more cowbell. I think they're capable of knocking anyone off when they're at home, and that's happening. And we watched them beat a very solid Arizona State team. That win ages better each week. I honestly really like Mississippi State in this game. I think Tennessee is going to be caught in a bad spot on the road, and this is the spot where I think things could get hairy for Joey Aguilar. They've looked so crisp and so good thus far. They haven't really encountered that major bump because that didn't really happen against Georgia. They got up early, the crowd was in it and on their side. What happens when they're not on their side? I think Mississippi State could pull off a shocker here, and I think they do. Middle Tennessee at Kennesaw State, talking about a Middle Tennessee team that has not had a lot go right, lost some tough games. Kennesaw State showed some phenomenal stuff. Home victory over Arkansas State, why not? I think they keep it rolling and get another win against the Mississippi State team that's had some turmoil early in the season. Lost to Marshall last week, I believe, which not a very good Marshall team. Liberty at Old Dominion. I mean, who would have thought Old Dominion would be as favored by as much as they are in this game during the offseason? You knew it might be a tough game for Liberty, but man, Colton Joseph, Old Dominion, they look so good. Last time we saw them against Virginia Tech, they looked excellent. I think they get another win here, this time against Liberty. And I believe that's going to be 4 losses for Liberty. They lost to Bowling Green, they lost to Jacksonville State, and they lost to, I believe, James Madison. So would be just a startling result. Some people didn't think Liberty would lose 4 games all season. Most people didn't. I believe their over-under was like 9.5. Might have even been higher than that, and they'd be staring down the barrel of 1-4, I believe. So just awful start to the season for them. Next up, we've got Rhode Island at Western Michigan. Lance Taylor's team coming off a gutsy performance against Toledo. That 2-point conversion late wins it. If you are hearing some cat noises, it's my cat. So just aware, so you're aware. She's on the other side of the mic here, sitting on my laptop. So just in case that was weirding any of you guys out. Memphis on the road versus FAU. FAU, I think just a year behind where I thought they might be this year. Zach Kitley's scheme clearly taking a little bit longer to take effect. I think Memphis continues to ride the wave after that win over Arkansas. I think they beat FAU. Next up, we got a pair of undefeated Big 12 teams. Arizona heading on the road to play Iowa State. What a nice start to the season for the Wildcats. Kind of unexpected. I theorized maybe this was possible, but here they are. They've looked really solid so far, and Iowa State also a couple of nice wins for them. I think it's a reality check for Arizona that, maybe you can make a bowl game this year, but really rising and ascending that much in the Big 12, not going to be as easy as their brethren in Tempe pulled it off, but definitely some positive signs in year 2 for Brent Brennan. He's answered a lot of questions. He's definitely cooled off his seat a little bit. Western Kentucky travels to play Missouri State. The Bears have shown some great stuff thus far. Western Kentucky has shown some alarming things. So this is one where maybe Missouri State pulls off a nice upset. I do think Tyson Helton's squad is able to stop a little bit of the bleeding, so to speak. They're not like in a terrible spot or anything. They've just had a few results go directions they hope they wouldn't. So I think Western Kentucky gets a nice win at Missouri State. But the CUSA has been an interesting conference this year. Virginia Tech heads on the road to play NC State. I'm almost tempted to rock with Virginia Tech in this one just because I liked how they played last week. It was against Wofford, to be fair, but I think they could have just as easily rolled over. They still have a talented team. NC State's defense has been pretty suspect this year, and I'm just not extremely high on them, but CJ Bailey is a playmaker. They have more stability. The smarter, more responsible thing to do is rock with NC State at home. So that's what I'll do. I'll give myself a little smack on the wrist and not do the irresponsible thing. Jacksonville State heads on the road to play Southern Miss. Jacksonville State's had some really excellent showings so far this year. And they have a pretty solid defense. Southern Miss has taken a couple tough losses early on in the season as well. They've ran into some tough competition, to be fair. I'm going to trust the home team here. I think Southern Miss gets the win, but Jacksonville State, a dangerous team once you hit CUSA play, so just keep an eye on that. We've got some really great games to talk about still here. App State at Boise State. Formerly, this would have been a very anticipated matchup of Group of 5 contenders, but App State, probably not all that this year. They've lost some tough ones early in the year. I think Boise State gets a nice win at home. We've got Washington State on the road versus Colorado State, a future Pac-12 battle. A little preview of that right here. Washington State has been exposed at times, hasn't looked fantastic this year. Same with Colorado State. Both teams have a lot of flaws. To me, I think this is one of those games where Jimmy Rogers and this staff, they just put together one of those games that instills a little bit more faith in you long-term about what this staff will do at Washington State. I think they get a quality road victory against a Rams team that has been hot and cold this year, to say the least. UMass on the road at Missouri. Don't think it's a hot take to rock with Missouri. UMass may not win a game this year, may be the worst team in college football. They lost to Bryant. In the CUSA, there's always room for wins, room to figure it out. They're not in the CUSA, though, so that wouldn't matter to them. They're in the MAC. I apologize to UMass. But in the MAC, same story. There are room for wins, so we'll see. Oregon on the road versus Penn State. It's one of the two biggest games of the weekend. They're both near the night slate, which is a beautiful thing. You love to see primetime. This game is just so massive for James Franklin. You talk about what this game is for Penn State. It is a home game. It is a whiteout. It is a night game. It is, again, at home. You've got everybody back from last year, basically. Might as well. 90% of your guys back from last year, basically. They're like top 15 in returning production. You're off of a bye. You have not played anyone this year. There are no significant injuries. You have Jim Knowles as your defensive coordinator. If not now for Penn State, when? They're 3.5-point favorites at home. And I don't know. I just haven't seen the downfield passing game for Penn State. Those wide receiver transfers, they haven't just sparked in a way that's super inspiring. Oregon has a young quarterback. Oregon is a young team. Oregon is not tested. Oregon has not had to go into an environment like this yet. And yet I think Dan Lanning is going to get his guys together, and they're going to beat Penn State on the road as an underdog. I just will believe it when I see it with James Franklin. He has not beaten a top-tier contender in the Big Ten at peak efficiency since that 2016 win, which was his arrival moment at Penn State and like his signature victory, and they haven't done it since then. I'll believe it when I see it. San Jose State heads on the road to play Stanford. This one could go either way. Stanford's shown some positive things. They have a physical style of play. Ben Gulbranson can make some stuff happen. I think they can beat San Jose State and actually avenge a loss from last year to San Jose State, which is what that would be. Stanford, pretty terrible, but they did get the conference win over Boston College, so there's a glimmer of hope there. Alabama at Georgia, though, is the co-main with Oregon Penn State. I personally am just like 2% more excited to see this game just because of how great it was last year, and I still think Alabama's a really good team. Obviously, Georgia's got the ridiculous home winning streak. I heard somebody say it was 33 games. Is that accurate? Because if it is, that's absolutely nuts. 33 straight home victories. However, Kirby Smart is 1-6 versus Alabama as a head coach. The little known fact within that fact is the fact that he's never hosted Alabama. It's either been in Atlanta for the SEC title game or it's been in Tuscaloosa. Or it's been in some cases in the playoffs as well, or the national championship game, which is within the playoffs, so that's a little redundant. But basically, he gets them in Athens this time for the first time. So will that change things? Something's got to give one way or another. I think a lot of people have sold their Alabama stock. I saw people talking about who the next head coach at Alabama will be after Bama lost to Florida State, talking about how terrible this team is. I think they've responded extremely well. I think they've played extremely well. Georgia gets up for games like this. I think it's going to be an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. I think it's going to be an awesome football game, and I think Stockton's answered a lot of questions thus far in the season. I just look back and think back to time and time again how Kalen DeBoer's teams look when he plays in a massive game, notably a game where he's a slight underdog. All those games between Washington and Oregon, Washington and Texas in the playoffs, Bama, Georgia last year, Bama, LSU last year, and they just always bring their A game. I think there's something to be said about the way this staff gets ready for games. They're getting back a few key pieces. You've got Jam Miller back. You've got the defensive lineman, I believe it's Tim Keenan, back as well. I just think those little things are going to add up. I think Florida State's a really good team that just caught Bama in week 1 sleeping a little. I think the Crimson Tide are awake for this game. I think they pull off what would be an upset against Georgia, and I think they continue to own Kirby Smart with a win there in Athens. Give me Alabama. We got another SEC matchup to follow that one up. Kentucky at South Carolina. South Carolina, I think, gets the win at home. Lenora Sellers, I trust, is healthy and will play for this one. I actually didn't hear if there was any further update for him, but he did play against Missouri, so I expect him to play here. Kentucky, he's been okay thus far. They had a spirited performance against Ole Miss. They could have a spirited performance here. Them winning isn't even out of the question with how South Carolina's been playing, but I'm going to rock with the Gamecocks. Marshall has to play Louisiana. Season has not gone super well for either of these teams. Louisiana with 2 rough non-conference losses to Rice and Eastern Michigan. Marshall with the tough loss to Missouri State. I'm going to take Louisiana. I think Louisiana gets the home victory. Marshall just feels like has a little bit more dysfunctional. Louisiana, not a bad team. They've just ran into a couple teams having spirited efforts. Louisiana Tech at UTEP. UTEP has just whiffed on some games this year. I think Louisiana Tech's able to go and just dismantle these guys on the road. They've played excellent. They've been every bit as good as I think they could be and thought they could be. BYU at Colorado is the nightcap, end cap here. A little bit of a trap game for BYU. Got to be careful on the road against a decent Colorado team that has shown some solid stuff. They're capable of beating a lot of teams, but I do think BYU is able to take care of business and get the job done in Boulder. Even though it's another tough road test for their young quarterback, the rest of the team around him, defense travels well. It's a really well-built team. So there it is. Every single pick for every single Week 5 college football game. Like I said, this is something I look forward to every week. It is always a blast to do. You'll have to let me know down in the comments what was the most controversial pick I made here. What picks do you disagree with? What picks do you agree with? But I will link this website down in the bio, I guess. Yeah. I almost said comments, but whatever. I'll link this down in the bio if you're watching it on YouTube. I'll also link the Discord where college football discussion is just flowing at all times. We passed 1,000 people. I've probably said that a couple times, but it's really awesome to see all the engagement and all the stuff in there. And you get sneak peeks of content a little early sometimes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, do all the good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. That's all I got for you guys in this video. I will see you guys next week.